We've been very clear that we are strong supporters of universal background checks. If someone's too dangerous to fly on a plane, they're too dangerous to own a gun. If they've threatened a spouse or beaten a partner, they're too dangerous to own a gun. And so the idea of arming teachers seems it seems very nonsensical to me. There are measures that we can put in place. 97% of people want universal background checks. Why that can't get done, I don't understand, similar to bump stocks. So we've, even being a hunter and a proud gun owner, I think there are some common sense measures that will make a huge difference. And even if it saved, one life, it would be worth it. And, universal background checks is a great place to start.
We don't need to act like Florida and raise the age to buy a gun.
That's not been something that we've considered. It's, I'm not sure, I have to check the laws. I know for a long time handguns were 21. I think they might still be 21. But long guns have been 18 for a long time. But someone to dig in a little further.
We've had issues with enforcement of gun laws, and certainly that's something that in the Assembly we addressed in terms of straw purchasers or human holsters, or making sure that there's sufficient penalties for those that have committed gun crimes.
The Dems, of course, offered the background check amendment. I don't think you supported that.
I don't believe so. I mean, certainly there's any number of procedural votes that might come up. You want to make sure that people who are wanting to defend themselves and others have the opportunity to do so. I mean, it's the law-abiding people who are going to actually follow laws. People who are already intending to disregard them, passing a new law isn't necessarily going to keep that from happening.
When it comes to laws across the board and gun laws, I think it's important that we actively work to enforce the laws that are already on the books. And the bigger issue when it comes to school safety, every child should have a safe environment in which to be educated. And I think that also goes, in my opinion, to putting those decisions in the hands of the local districts, the families, the parents, pulling that from Madison, and then the state should facilitate that.
I have trouble finding a hunter who thinks that AR-17s are really a necessity for hunting. If bump stocks haven't been outlawed, they should be outlawed. I don't argue with anybody's right to have a gun in their homes or the concealed carry as long as they've gone through training. I'm wholeheartedly against arming people in school districts.
Should there be background checks over
Absolutely.
private sales?
Absolutely.
These horrible tragedies are really the result of poor parenting on the part of the parents of these young individuals. I mean, these poor people are crying out for some positive adult interactions. We need to figure out a way to get our kids to be better parented. I don't know how to do that. I haven't figured that out in 26 years of being a lawyer. I was a guardian ad litem for many, many years in cases, from a divorce case to a guardianship case to a TPR. I have seen those kids. We need better parenting, and we can't legislate that.
I'm a big believer in local control. I'm a fan of local school boards. I'm thrilled that the governor and the legislature set aside $100 million this last session for school districts to take advantage of that and figure out how to make their students safer. In our karate school, what we do is we prepare our students for the worst scenario with their self-defense skills, hoping that they never have to use it. I believe preparation is 99.9% of protecting our students. So I'm hoping that every school district in the state applies for these grants and uses that money to better, whatever their choices are, to better safeguard our children in the schools.
A person can buy a gun without any background check, without anything, at a yard sale. They could be a convicted felon, they can be a person with mental problems. I don't think anybody in their right mind wants to take guns away. I do feel that we have to be careful of who has the guns. I'm a strict constitutionalist. Most people look at the Second Amendment and only look at the second half of the Second Amendment. If a person is willing to give government service to the militia and they can bring their own guns and use their own ammunition and pay their own food, as was expressed by the Founding Fathers in the Second Amendment, then we have a good Second Amendment. But if we're just concentrating on one half of the Second Amendment, we're not looking at the full reason of why they wrote the Second Amendment.
Should we change the law on background checks so they're mandatory at some of these private sales?
Well, background checks in and of themselves don't necessarily stop gun violence, because we've seen too many examples of people that would have passed any background check getting guns. They just snapped and they decided to kill people. I think we have to change our way of thinking about guns. Guns are a very important part of Wisconsin hunting and sports. I don't want to take that away. I don't think we should. On the other hand, we have people that have had their gun rights taken away because of a domestic dispute. There should be some way that after a certain period of time, without any problems with the law, they should have their rights reestablished.
I think background checks certainly can be re-examined. I mean, and in the cases of some of the shootings that have happened, the mental illness side of it, you know, maybe we got to re-examine. Banning guns, no. Do we need combat weapons? No.
Okay.
You know, but I think that people hunt, and I think people have the right to have their guns.
What about raising the age to buy a gun, which Florida did?
I would stay with the 18. I don't.
Stay with the 18?
They're adults at 18. They can go to jail at 18, and they're responsible for themselves. I don't think 3 years is going to make any difference.
Criminals are always going to find ways to get guns, and we need to make sure that law-abiding citizens have access to weapons so they can defend themselves. I think that you know, if we make things more restrictive, it's just going to hurt innocent people. It's going to make it more difficult for them to defend themselves. I've spoken to teachers who wish that they could carry so that they could protect themselves and protect their students if any kind of incident did occur. I mean, obviously training is important. We don't want people, you know, unfamiliar with weapons, you know, and carrying them, but, you know, with the proper training, I think any American citizen should be able to defend themselves. We've seen ridiculous solutions like in Pennsylvania where they wanted to give a box of rocks or miniature Louisville sluggers to teachers to try to defend themselves. Those kind of solutions just don't make sense. I think that, you know, what's a rock going to do when you're up against a firearm?